All right, there we go. Just taking a look here, kind of start with, we had to just had you take a look at some asynchronous work that is available in multiple places, the resource page, or it's either on our Google Classroom. So I know sometimes, oops, we didn't quite get to it, but just kind of be aware that it was out there. Kind of what we, as facilitators, decided last time was, there's just some things we just want to make sure that we get in front of you so that, when we get into these meetings, that it isn't like, okay, where was that talked about? So, and obviously the asynchronous work shouldn't take you long. I'd say at the most 10 to 15 minutes, but I know everybody's busy too. So, all right. And hopefully you were able to get into the pre-survey to work through that. If you didn't quite get there, you can do that when we have a moment. All right. And we're back again. And make sure too, if I could have, just make sure that you get your attendance taken. So if I could have my helpers put that link into the chat just to make sure that we have it, that would be awesome. So, and if you're looking for a copy of this slideshow that we have, that should be on Google Classroom or the resource page. Or once again, I know that Janie or Julie could throw the slideshow link into the chat too. So, and there's some of the information. Obviously, of course, we wouldn't expect you to be able to memorize all those long URLs. The question parking lot, when you get in there, just kind of keep in mind that the question parking lot information there, that is a, help me out, Janie, what is that program called? I can't remember right offhand. Padlet?
Yes, it's called Padlet.
Yep. And just as you have things that maybe come up and you have some really, some great questions, go ahead and put it there. Obviously, we might ask you to do that through the training, not to be rude necessarily, but just so that we can kind of keep the workshop flowing. All right. And this was some things that are just from your asynchronous work. And what we had you do in the asynchronous work is we had you look at 2 curriculum guides for Unit 4. Unit 4, lesson 1 and 2. So what I'm going to ask you to do is on these 2 slides, just going to go into a smaller window mode, is we're going to reflect here, and I'm just going to have you, put your name in there and provide an answer. But what role does the teacher play in supporting active student learning? What can active student learning look like for distance learning? So I'll go ahead and take a few moments to provide an answer in there. And there's 2 slides for this, slides 5 and 6, so that we can get everybody's answer in there. Not to interrupt your typing, but don't you just hate it when the flies get dopey this time of year and just annoy you by flying around you? Everybody's like, no, I don't have that happen, Scott. Okay, well, that's fair enough.
That does happen, and they fly at like -5 miles an hour. And you're like, get out of here.
Amen. Yeah,
Yeah.
you take care of one group of flies and then about 20,000 come to the funeral, so that's not fun. So obviously our insects in this country are not social distancing. Maybe we need to have a visit with them. What we'll do is we'll take about another 30 seconds to kind of wrap up those responses that you have so diligently worked on. And one thing that I'm just going to kind of do in conjunction with this. So once you've gotten your response done for the group reflection, if I could ask one favor of you, and this kind of goes along too with this, is it kind of goes along with our welcome on slides 7 and 8 too. And if you could also put your name on that slide and also just reflect on 2 questions. What are you most looking forward to in this training? And how are you feeling this week? So I'll give you a couple minutes to weigh in on that. We'll say about my time, 8:10, so 7:10, west side of the state. So
I was gonna say I did a Scott, I know you're friends with Terry on Facebook, and she
Yep.
is posting about doing these mood boards for her class, and they check in by clicking and dragging where they fit on the scale. So I copied her and I threw that in on one of our slides, but we don't have to do it. I just thought I'd share that with the group because I thought that was a really neat idea to do a check-in. Like we've always been doing this, what you all see in front of you. But I really just like Terry's idea. If you're looking for something fun and different, no need to do it. But if you want to, you sure can.
All right. So we'll finish up those final thoughts and so on and so forth. But one of the things that as we we can take a look each individually at slides 5, 6, 7, and 8. But as I'm kind of looking at just some of the general things from the welcome, a lot of you have a lot going on. I think that that's probably a parent. I know that with COVID and just kind of some of the things that go along with that, and just it's tired. It's very, very tiring. So, but as we kind of look at some of those things, does anybody have anything? I suppose for the next minute or two, then we can have a share out session too. We kind of, like I said, we want to keep things going. But what are some things? How are things going? How do you feel? What are some ways that you or that we as teachers can keep our students active? Okay, kind of coming back to our question. So kind of how are things going? How do we get those students to be active learners?
I guess like one of the things I had emailed when I was going to be gone in October, some of my kids were really struggling, and to kind of help them, I had some getting it. So I just let them go and do this pretty much on their own. And I've been having the kids, as they can finish a code, I pull it up and then I bring them over and then have them explain to me why they did what they did. And so if something wasn't working, I had them say, okay, look, and why wasn't that working? And so then they had to see what was missing. And then I made them add in a document we had made that was keeping their code, so that they were having to look back, because otherwise I was getting really overwhelmed that they didn't want to try because it was hard. And so I just kind of told them, you got to suck it up and explain it to me why you did what you did. And if you're not quite getting it, we'll go off of what I do know that you know. And that's kind of how we've been making it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. What are some other things? Like I said, good. Now, how are we making our students active learners, or what role do we serve as the teachers in that capacity, and how are things going? I've been doing things. I know that there might be some of you that are working with. I mean, obviously, you're working with the code.org curriculum. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this. But I know that there's times that where we go through those struggles. Where we're trying to really, as teachers, trying to figure out what our role is in that. And the one thing that I've learned, the worst thing, and I work in an integration role. And sometimes the worst thing that I shouldn't say the worst thing, feedback you can hear that's a little bit unsettling is from a teacher that you're working with, is things aren't going well. And I've had that conversation before where things just seems like aren't working well. And the one thing I always say that as teachers, I think it's really important that, at least kind of in my experiences, is that when we set expectations for the class, understand that with every class you have, it's going to be a little different. Sometimes things will work well, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you're going to have different expectations for different classes. It's just going to be a little different. And as all of us here are good educators, and we can adjust. Just kind of be aware that as you go through this curriculum or anything that's similar, you're just going to have to adjust. One class is different from the next, and that as educators. So, all right. Well, let's go on to, and like I said, if anybody has any thoughts, let me know, and we'll just kind of go from there. So, all right, we'll just talk a little bit. Oh, sorry, who did I miss?
I was gonna say I have 7th grade computers, and I really like these little humans, but they are very good at blurting and just being off track. So I was trying to teach them vocabulary for code, and all the techniques that I normally go through where kids would just have it, like they bombed the quiz. So we had to like go back over stuff. I was trying to sort of build a bridge from what they had in 6th grade to like 7th grade, when there was that big, huge time gap. Because kids in our school will have like a semester of computers, and then they go a whole year before they have anything else in computers. So it's really hard, because they're middle school kids, and I'm like, I just know that they're just probably forgetting so many of those important concepts. And then once they start digging in, they get it. So I wanted to go through vocabulary, and this is like, we're not even on code. And no matter what I teach them, they are so flighty. And it's like, we have had to spend so much time, I just like teaching it another way, trying to get them to pay attention, trying to get them to be able to apply it, and stuff like that. And then my English classes are all doing like research papers. And so I've had so many papers to grade in so many, like more than one prep. And so here I am, and I'm wanting to start unit 3 because the kids in 6th grade did 1 and 2 for code. And it's like, I'm so exhausted. And this is like new curriculum. So every time I think that I'm gonna like open up the site and like figure it out, I don't know where to start. Like I've got the class set up, and I'm like, now what do I do? Okay, there's a video on distance learning. Yeah, I have 6 or 7 kids there. Okay, well, what do I do about the kids in class that can't even stay in their desk and can't even pay attention and don't even listen? Because to me, coding is really tedious. So I'm really worried about starting it, but I really, really want to. And I want to start it like next week. Because we're still doing in-person learning, and I would like to have exposure to that when I've got those little bodies in the classroom before. Because like, what if we get to December and we're totally remote? We don't know how this is going to go. So I don't know if you guys have a suggestion. I've set up my class, and I want to know what's the next step that will kind of help me feel like I'm seeing what I need to see. It's unit 3, it's code, it's total code, it's pure code, it's not problem solving or anything.
Okay.
I guess that's my big question of the day. So sorry about taking up all that time.
No, that's great. I think that'd be a great question for our question parking lot, so that as we can think about that a little bit as a group, and then we can come back to that question at the end. So yeah, I mean, how you're feeling about different things and kind of the nerves, we all get that way. I mean, and you just don't know how kids are going to react to the curriculum. So, but yeah, thanks for sharing. Put that in the question parking lot so we can come back to it.
I'll throw that in there, Scott.
Okay.
And I think
Thank
it's
you.
important to remember, if we were to all ask our students right now how they're feeling, I think we'd get a lot of these same responses: overwhelmed, tired, burnt out. I mean, granted, probably not on the level teachers are, but I think we're definitely having that empathy right now for students as well. There's nothing normal anymore. So I think we could probably skip over it like you did, Scott, the Zoom stuff, because you guys are all pros. And like I said, I'll throw that in the
Yeah.
question parking lot, Leela, so you don't have to do that. And we'll touch base on it at the very end.
Okay. Just kind of
Sounds
taking a
good.
look. Yep.
That's
Just take.
good.
Oh, no worries. Just kind of taking a look here. We may or may not have breakout rooms, but these are some of the things that some of the different roles that we could take on, whether it's a note taker, share out, timekeeper, discussion guide. Those are kind of some of the different roles, not only that we would take as teachers, but also as as our students would take. So, what are we doing today? Obviously, we just got through. We're finishing up the welcome. Just in a few moments here, Reese is going to go through a model lesson, and then I'll take us through the model lesson, reflection, and group work, and then all 3 of us as facilitators will wrap things up. So, as we kind of take a look here, just at some of the prompts, and these are saying we're not going to have a share out on this, but just what we're going to do is we're just going to take a moment to think about these 3 journal prompts, and you can either think about them. If you want to write them down, you certainly can. If you want to put them on a Word document, you certainly may as well. but just to kind of be thinking of that. What does it mean for students to be active in the classroom? And you did some of that already in earlier in our discussion. And what sort of things are students doing, and what is the teacher doing? So kind of give you about a few moments to think about that. We'll say about a minute, and then we'll get into the model lesson.
What number slide is that in the presentation, please?
That is not, okay, that is slide 16, I believe.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right. And all right, let's go ahead. I'm just going to navigate here to slide 17. Now, obviously, this might be something that we can kind of come back to as far as some of those prompts that are there. Like I said, we already on the earlier slide talked a little bit about this, but from here on out, I am going to turn it over to Risa. So we are on slide 18, the model lesson. So Risa, I'm going to stop sharing and allow you to share your screen.
Thank you, Scott. Yep, I'm trying to get the buttons working here. Tell me if you see the model lesson, yes? Okay, because I've got my double screen, so sometimes it gets glitchy. All right, model lesson. We are going to put our learner's hat on. Got my hat. Scott's got his. So we are going to be the learner in this lesson. On slide 20, the design process of, hang on, I'm going to try and move this out of the way. Lesson 3 is user-centered design, micro activity. Go to 21. Different people have different needs, interests, etc. What might be some of the challenges if you are trying to design a product for someone else? Okay, so it's talking about the user-centered design. And this is where kids kind of look at, you know, lesson 1 was all about problem solving. You define it, you prepare, you try, reflect, and it kind of goes in a full circle. You can use that, but then in the middle of it, we want to put this empathy. How do we look at whatever we're designing, a game or an app or whatever, from the user's standpoint? Let's go to 23. So overview of the lesson. You're designing a product and it requires you to think about the needs of your users, even if those needs are very different from your own. In this activity, you'll be designing a product from the ground up for the specific need of a user. So go ahead and select a role, and I'm not sure how, if we can divide it into 2 groups. If you might need, if you're only 3 in a group, you might need a timekeeper and a presenter or something share. But we'll do this. Writer, someone write the description of what your product is. An artist, feel free to just draw it on chart paper or on a small sheet of paper, you know, regular paper, and you could show the screen or whatever. Timekeeper, just keep track of time. It'll be a 5-minute for each kind of section. Per section, 5 minutes for the second section, and then 6 minutes for the third section. And then if you can pick one person to present. Here's what you'll do. Write a description of what your product is and how it addresses your users' needs. Draw and label a picture of your product. And make sure you include all of those smart features, that they should be labeled with maybe a short description. Does this product, use technology to implement a sensory issue or a seeing or whatever, okay? And be prepared to share who your user is and a specific need identified, design feature of the product, one feature that you chose not to include, and one feature you might not want for yourself, but could see that others would use it. Does everybody feel comfortable in what the assignment is, or do you have any questions? Here is kind of what we'll look at the directions. So first you need to brainstorm and fill out this chart for group 1 breakout. And do we have, here's how group 1 can prepare. And then group 1 will do the presentation from that. So I think we need to set up 2 groups then. And you'll each get, so work about 5 minutes on this slide, which is slide 27. 5 minutes on the pros and cons. And then 6 minutes on the preparing to present. Oops. Or trying and presenting or presentation. And you can just show your image on the screen if you want to. You guys have any questions? All right, can we set the timers for, are you making extra groups, Janie?
Yeah, I just finished. So there's breakout
Okay.
group 1 and breakout group 2.
Okay. Looks like breakout group 1 needs, or
Oh, sorry. Yep, you're right.
One more
I'll fix
slide.
that. Yeah.
okay. So Julie, do you have us in 3 groups or 2 groups? I mean, okay. Does anybody have any questions, or do you feel comfortable with what you're working on? If you're in group 1, you'll do the ones that are labeled group 1, breakout room 1, and those that are in breakout room 2, please follow those 3 slides. So you'll each, and we'll have about 16 minutes or so. So 5, 5, and 6. Okay, Julie, send us to our breakout rooms then. How this will look. Let's look at page or slide 34, because we're going to kind of do a share out with the groups, and because we only have group A and group B, we'll just kind of leave us right here in the main group and do this kind of activity. So basically you have 2 groups, and you will explain to each other your product. Each group will give feedback then on the product. You'll have 1 writer and 1 timekeeper as needed. We might have a couple since Scott, Janie, we can kind of help them keep time. So group 1, you'll have 2 minutes to present to group B or 2. And then group 2 will have 2 minutes to provide feedback to group 1. Does that make sense? And then you switch. Your feedback will be, what do I like about it? What do I wish was different? And what if? What if something was, all right? And then on that, we can fill in slide. Let's go to 35. And this is our feedback screen. Yeah, I don't think we need 2 of those, Janie. Do we?
I'll delete it. Sorry.
I was gonna say they're just gonna look at the slides. Okay, So do you want
Can
me
we
to
stay
stop
large?
present?
Can we just stay in one big group reset, or does that mess it up?
Say that again?
Oh, I was wondering if we were staying in one big group so we can all hear.
Yes, yeah, we are.
Okay.
But did you want me to present group one? Should I just do the present and you guys can talk? Or, okay, hang on, let me know if you see it. Okay. Can you see
Yep, I
breakout room
can.
one prep?
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna mute
Um,
myself, so I'm gonna let group one have 2-minute timer. 2-minute timer.
Okay, your timer is set for 2 minutes.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
We designed a shirt that can be used that would tell our temperature. I'm just gonna go look on that other page so I can read a little better. One sec. So our basic need was homeostasis of the body. We wanted people who are sick to be able to tell their temperature, and the body and the clothing would adjust to their temperature. It would work for athletes to help prevent them from getting overheated, and it would prevent people from being cold outdoors. I'm just thinking like just thought of this like somebody that's a mountain climber or something like that. Maybe a shirt like that would prevent them from getting hypothermia if they get stuck out in a storm or something. Some pros that we had: you could be used in schools to quickly tell if a student has a fever. It can sense what the body needs, and you can use it in lots of different settings like personal, medical, elderly, and you can have it actually track to an app and keep a log on it. Some cons of connectivity to the app, making sure that it's not too tight, how expensive it would be if it has glitches or possibly overheating or overcooling if there's a malfunction. And then on slide 29, we found a picture that we thought would kind of work for our product. It's a long sleeve shirt with sensors throughout the shirt to track the body temperature, and the temperatures are recorded back to the app if it's too high or too low. And then the shirt provides either the heat or the cooling to make sure that the body is regulated into the right temperature. It is geared for anyone, but particularly hospital, schools, elderly people, outdoorsmen. And its need is to maintain proper temperature, and its skin type sensors, its connectivity, heating and cooling, I think would be its features. Not included, it's not full body, just protecting the torso. And then one feature that maybe some people might want would be that would meet the needs of the wearer would be like if you had somebody that's diabetic, could have a glucose monitor that would go in that too.
Good job, Tina. Thanks.
I think I made
All
my
right, let's
sense.
have a 2-minute feedback from group two then about that. What did you like? What do you wish? And then what if? Can
I'd say
somebody in group two be the typer, or if you want a couple people typing and sharing? I'm gonna set a 2-minute timer again.
Okay, 2 minutes and counting.
Okay, good job. Do you guys want to share out what you typed? Okay, Leela and Zabri.
I think we've all been
Let's see.
reading them.
Okay.
It's up to you guys if anyone wants to share. I love reading all these. It was hard for me not to like add in because I agree with a lot of you. That's perfect.
That's some good feedback. I didn't think about how it would be powered.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Cool. All right, let's go and flip it then. Okay. Group 2, if you want to present.
Okay.
Should I start on screen 30 then?
Yeah, that will work. I'm old and that's very small, so I'm just going to work from memory. Thank God that's still working. But we thought we would design a pair of pajamas for a baby that would have a couple of little sensors on either side of the zipper on their chest. And then if the baby like stopped breathing, an alarm would go off for the parents. We didn't really want to have it be too intrusive because we want the baby to be able to sleep comfortably. We talked about how it should not get too warm and it should also have an indicator light. So the parents knew how much battery power this little thing had in the pajamas, so that kind of like your cell phone, you just have a picture of a battery. Oh, if the kid's going to sleep 10 hours straight and I need to get this charged up before they go to bed, we thought you should be able to wash it in the washing machine. And it was for like sleep apnea and also like to prevent SIDS. And if the baby like thrashes around, it's still fine. And if the baby is really hot, it can still operate under bigger temperatures. The pros and the cons, certainly it's good for the parents who have the extra security of knowing there's some kind of an alarm that's actually on the baby. So it's a little bit different than like a camera and an alarm based on that or something, but it's actually a health monitor for the baby. Also, we thought it should have a vibrator in it, so if the baby did stop breathing, it would vibrate and hopefully wake the baby up so that it would, start breathing again. And we thought that if there was an alarm attached to it to make it loud enough, because some parents are really heavy sleepers. So we thought that would be really important. And we didn't really talk about a price, but the number $39.95 kind of rolls into my head because it's not like 50, it's not like 100, it's not like cheap pajamas, but it has this monitor. And like I can swing 40 bucks. I probably don't want to swing 100 bucks because I'm going to need more than one pair. So, and we just thought it would be such an important thing to do. And one of our persons in our group had 3 children who struggled with sleep apnea. And so she is
Okay.
living proof of the stress level that parents can feel. So there you have it.
Good job.
I'm
Yeah.
constantly staring at Oakley, like, is he still breathing?
I know it's hard. The first time that my daughter slept through the night, I literally think I could have set a world record for the 100-yard sprint because, and I have no speed, but I like woke up, looked at the clock and went, oh my God. I thought something like, is she breathing? And I go running in there so fast. I scared my husband so bad and she was fine. The first night they sleep the whole night, you just swear to God something happened and you missed it. But we all get through that.
Looks good, group 2. Yep, keep typing. I'll give you the 2-minute warning.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Somebody's dog isn't happy. I just don't know how, I don't know if your life is like this, there's these just random things that just happen during a Zoom meeting. They're just never happen at other times. Like I live out in the country and somebody will like ring the doorbells like, well, why are you doing this now? Never happens. So that's my life in a nutshell.
I have a 7th grade girl and she's at home and she's very artsy. And every single day she's putting stuff in front of the camera that she made and it's all cute. And then she has like 3 St. Bernards. And today she's giving one of them a belly rub and it's like, you know? Oh, it's so funny.
Okay, there's the timer. All right. Yes, oh, I can figure out the clock, right? All right. Let's go to then the wrap up on this. Great ideas. I love the reflection. You guys are awesome. This is those are some good questions and the wish. I wish they did make these. Yeah. My niece is kind of at that situation too, where she kind of has some issues with sleeping. Based on today's activity, what challenges do you foresee in designing software for others? And this is more of a reflection time. I'm not going to have you journal unless you want to journal, but I'll give you about a minute to kind of think about that. What do you see as challenges when you're designing software for others?
Are we gonna just say something or whoever wants to say?
Just
afterwards?
take about 30 seconds and think about it, and then we'll probably have maybe 2 people share out.
If I have my speaker on and you hear Christmas carols or singing, it's my 15-year-old. She sounds fantastic, but she sings every night for like 2 hours throughout the house. Every night. I'm like, she's gonna be on one of those shows someday singing, and who knows?
Okay, Leila, do you have a challenge then, or?
So one of the things that I would find challenging is like we tend to think about the world from our own perspective, but when you're designing something for other people, you have to really think out of the box and think about all the different types of people. And the one question that was asked of us is what are the needs of the people who would use the product? And I think that you have to take some careful thought to really address all the different diverse needs that people would have if you're going to design software.
Good. One other person, would you want to share? What do you think are the challenges of designing software for others?
Maybe knowing what's intuitive to them is not intuitive to you, or what environment they're used to working in. Are they Apple people? Are they Windows people? And where should controls be placed, maybe?
Good, yeah.
Remember when we went through code this summer and like were telling us if you find something on code and you want to email the people to tell them, they might make a change. I can just imagine like how there's some really smart computer people who like figure out software really easily and they want to try so many things and they might feel that it's too limited or they want to do this but it doesn't let them and stuff like that.
Yeah. Scott, should we go to 37, model lesson reflection? So we can take our learner's hat off now and kind of do a reflection as a teacher. Thanks.
Yeah, certainly. Yep, I'll get us started here.
Do you want me to just keep presenting and maybe present bigger and then you can use yours?
Yeah, however you want to do it. I mean, we can certainly, maybe it'd be better if I shared there. There we go. All right, I'll get this to. All right. So let me get to course. Back to course. You're going. No, he's going to the wrong spot here. So here's where we're at. We're on slide 37. Coming in as Risa introduced the model lesson, reflection, and group dynamics. So, we come to a couple terms here, iteration and decomposition. And one thing I'm going to have you do, and I'm just going to read the definitions here just for a moment here. Iteration, we're talking about the continuous improvement in order to modify and enhance creative projects. And decomposition, break large problems into smaller components in order to begin taking small steps towards the larger goal. So, one of the questions that we're going to just kind of think about as we go on to the next few slides here, where do you see both iteration and decomposition embedded into lesson 3? Okay, so that's something that you can just kind of think about. And the other thing that we're going to have considerations of is this. When we talk about the lesson that we just finished, and it's talking a lot about grouping, okay? How many of you know of a group that does not work very well together? How many of you know of a teacher group, of course, not in your school district, that does not work very well together? Okay. So teams can be, or groups or teams, or however you want to describe them, they can be a blessing or it can be a disaster. So we have to really be careful that as we divide our students into different groups, we have to do some careful consideration there. All right. And sometimes we have to make some changes during the middle of the class period to resolve issues. Like a lot of times as we go through this individual brainstorming, some groups really brainstorm things well. Sometimes we, as the lead learner in the room, we have to help guide them in order to kind of come up with an idea. So roles, obviously, there's going to be roles in different teams. The thing I think that I've noticed the most, where you have 2 or 3 kids that are really taking on a lot of the load and you have one person that's left out. Sometimes they are left out because they just don't feel like they can contribute anything, or sometimes it's just, oh, I don't want to do anything. So, there's kind of 2 different ways to look at that. So finding value to the team is very important as we look at our students that we're leading. Peer feedback. I think, I'll be very honest, in trying to give peer feedback in my situations has been very difficult. It's not something that's easy for me. And maybe I feel like sometimes a 7th or 8th grade or 5th and 6th grade, they just don't, oh, it's good. Oh, it's not good. They really don't get specific or give really critical feedback that's going to help. So that's an area I struggle with, and trying to develop that skill for our groups is really important. Okay, so we end up having here is I believe we have 2 journal prompts, okay? And so we are on slide 44 and we are on slide 45. And what I want you to do is I want you to take, we'll just say like what Risa did, it will take about a minute to, you can write these their answers to the prompts down, you can think about them. But what will happen is after we take that minute or two, when we get to slide 46, we're going to take 2 minutes and we'll set the timer, just have a share out and kind of share some different ideas from what you reflected on from slides 44 and 45.
Should we use the chat feature for this share out, Scott?
We could certainly do that. Okay. So if you have something, folks, go ahead and add in, we'll change it. We'll make an audible and we'll change slide 46. Put your reflection in the chat or an idea from your reflection in the chat. And just as we kind of getting some information from the chat, I know Kay mentioned, and asked a really good question here. You know, rubrics can help guide what we do as far as peer feedback. I mean, you obviously have to have a good rubric. I don't know if I would really say I do, but
What was the format of peer feedback we just gave tonight? Was I like, I wish. What was the third one? I could probably just look in my
I
slides.
wonder,
I wonder, yeah.
or no, it's what if, sorry.
What
I've
if?
used the I wonder.
yeah, it's interesting because, you know, as you know, over my time in teaching, you know, as you develop, it seems like it's interesting how I've really developed very structured things for certain classes like rubrics and the specific things I want the students to do. And then there's other students I feel like the more I structure things, the more I take away from their freedom to learn. And that's just a thing that I've learned. Some of the groups you can say have at it and they do well, and some it's like, nope, we can't do that. We got to have some structure in that. So yeah, and there's some good ideas that are coming through in our chats. One of the things, maybe rather than going through and reading them aloud, is just taking a few moments to just kind of take a look at those and read through those, if you would. So I'll give you about a minute, and I know that's not long enough, but we could certainly reflect a little bit later, maybe if needed. So we want to value everybody's time.
Bree, what did you mean by your response? It kind of piggybacked off of what Scott was saying about maybe not having it quite as structured. And then you said, Oh, because sorry, I'm reading two different things. And then waiting for the teacher to rescue them. Does that mean the teacher always has to explain what they get and don't get?
Yeah, that was a big thing for a lot of the kids. Like they didn't want to, when I showed them, when they're in the code, I was like, if you look, you can click this and it gives you assistance. None of them were wanting to use that. They wanted me to rescue them and tell them, well, no, this is exactly what you have to do, and this is how you have to do it. And let me pretty much just put that code in there for you. So by spending that quick, like 5 minutes max with them, I can just go over that with them. And so they're starting to learn that everything they need is there. And so when they come up to me for help later on in class, I first say, what of these did you use, to try to teach them of how do you seek out your own information when you're struggling, so that when you do come up for the question, you can say, okay, I looked at how to link the CSS file, but I still don't understand where I find that piece of code. And so that kind of leads our discussion, and it's more directed at exactly what they needed, that it's not that they didn't understand how to do the style CSS coding, but instead just the linking. So it kind of streamlined how I was helping them. And they've gained more confidence in finding information themselves and communicating where they're really at.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of good information, a lot of good responses in the chat, and just kind of some of the reflections that we have there. What I'm going to do is we are at 9:17, so I'm just going to keep us moving along with our workshop. So I'm just going to have everybody go. We're on slide 47 at this point here. And now we're going to go to slide 48. We're talking a little bit about group dynamics, and I kind of talking about some of the topics there. And you can take a look, and once again on slide 48, and just kind of look through the 5 different topics that are listed there. Basically, kind of looking at some of the essentials that we want to accomplish through collaboration and group work. And as we go through this, now we don't have the time for the breakout rooms, but what I'd like us to do is, you're going to notice that there are a few different slides here that have solutions to incorporate ideas from multiple contributions. So this is kind of just a way to get your input in there. And with us being a little bit short on time, obviously one thing I would ask is just kind of, if you can go through there and at least, kind of going through slides 50 through 53, maybe share one idea, at least so we get at least one idea on each slide. So I know we have about 5 or 6 people in this training. So if you go through and just share one idea, if you can try to get it on each slide, great. We'll just kind of see, and then we'll have a little bit of a gallery walk. So we'll go from there. And then as you're putting ideas down, look at the other people's suggestions too. And just kind of going through here and just reading some different things, some of the different input, strategic grouping, very, very important. Sometimes I wish our classes were organized that way. Sometimes when you get your class roster, I don't know if you feel the same way. You're like, ooh, man, they really must have messed up on getting these classes organized.
Or like if you're in a school where they're grouped just because that's their grade. So the ninth graders
Yeah.
like are with each other like all day long. Poor kids. They do well with it, but sometimes, you feel like it's too bad there's not like 2 ninth grade classes so you can kind of mix it up a little for them. But
That's true.
is strategic grouping like a new buzzword in education? I'm I'm sorry. I haven't been taking grouping classes lately, so like is that like a new buzzword?
Well, if it isn't, okay, whoever put it together, make sure you get it copyrighted and put it in a book, and then we'll all be rich. So,
Okay. It sounds like a buzzword.
yeah. Just remember, we coined that phrase, November 4th, 2020, strategic, or I shouldn't say we, the person who contributed it. I don't want to steal their idea. So, but yeah, as we go through here, and like I said, I want to keep us moving along with respect to time. But, as you go through some of the different things, look at some of the different ideas. Once again, I'm not going to read every one of them but there are some really, really good ideas that are listed there that really contribute to selecting groups or activities that we do in code. So thank you with that. Obviously, we have a gallery walk. Once again, just kind of take a look at just some of the great contributions that you put together. And then obviously, I know we're on slide 55 right now. Slide 55 is a journal prompt, and then slide 56 is a share out. We won't have it, with 7 minutes left, we probably won't, I shouldn't say we won't have time to share out. But what I would ask you to do is just to kind of keep that question in the back of your mind and make sure that you just kind of think about that and reflect on that question. And that question is very simply this: reflect on the strategies for creating a culture of inclusion in groups that you've learned about it in the session. Adapt about your top 3 strategies to meet the needs of your classroom. Give you a little bit of time to kind of think about that for a few moments, and then we'll move forward. All right, so we come to the slide 57, which is the wrap up for our workshop for today. And taking a look here just a moment, slide 58, which is the question parking lot. And we can come over here to our question parking lot. And we had a question from earlier about concerns of where to start. Students that cannot pay attention, no problem solving, where do I even begin? And I guess here's, and Janie, I know, has responded with some different ideas, which is great, but just kind of a, the thing is, there's the worst feeling in the world And like I said, I had this happen just about a week and a half ago where you run into, have the conversation where something isn't going well. And it's not fun. But we all have to have that feedback of realizing that sometimes things don't go well. And we had to make some changes, frankly. We had to make things a little bit more structured than what we were doing, because we gave the kids a lot of freedom, but it just didn't work. And the one thing I will say is that as a facilitator, each one of you is going to run into a different circumstance. Everybody's situation is different. Each class is different. As I said earlier, sometimes we need a lot of structure. Sometimes we don't. Do what works for you. We're all experienced educators in this workshop. You all know how to work with kids. Rely on that experience and realize there's going to be good times and there's going to be bad. You know, the easiest place to get started with is just getting started. And I'm the first one to admit it, is sometimes the hardest thing is just actually getting the kids going. It's that nerves, it's that tension of, do I start tomorrow? I don't know. Maybe we can back it up a little bit. So my suggestion is just, you just got to go through it. Some things are easier, some things aren't. That's why we have this workshop to help you through it. So I don't know if there's any other thoughts or ideas.
I didn't
Yep.
mean to clap and interrupt you, Scott, but it's like mic drop. I just put the code.org lingo in there that backs Scott up with his response, with the core values that code.org has, because what you're going through is expected.
Yeah.
I also have another pedagogy share out that I got from code.org 5 years ago, and it was just like one of those light bulb moments. And I'm going to share it in the chat. It's called ABC CBV. And what it means, oh, did I share it? Hang on. And what it means is activity before concept, concept before vocabulary. And it was just like, yeah, sometimes the kids need to do the activity or just kind of get a feel for the activity. So jumping in and doing something with that code or whatever, or to see how the code is acting with that game. Unit 3 is game lab, and the kids love the games. So as soon as they see that connection of the activity, then they'll go to the concept, and then they go to the vocabulary. Oh, debugging or CSD. What is that, the vocabulary. So it's activity before concept, concept before vocabulary.
That's good. And I do some of that in my own classes. There's times where we start with vocabulary and there's other times we start with examples. So yeah, that makes sense.
Risa, do you want to share that? Oh, there it is. Thank you. Say, did anyone else have anything in the question parking lot you didn't get a chance to ask or throw in there tonight? If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help. Even if it's in the middle of the day and you just want to shoot us an email, just utilize your resources. We're all here for you.
All right. So let's continue on here. Once again, we're on slide 59, and this one just kind of highlights just some of the overview and the goals of unit 4 and the design process. Once again, I'll let you read through that. And then obviously we get into the closing of our workshop. And just kind of a reminder here, our next meeting is Wednesday, December 9th, 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Mountain. And once again, not that we don't want, there will be a couple of short activities to review complete prior to that training. And what we're looking for on this is we do not want you to be spending hours on that. 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 at the most, just kind of getting familiar with those resources. Because a lot of those resources tie into what we will talk about during our online meeting. And then if you take a look at slide 62, I'm just gonna, slide 62. Slide 62 is actually our kind of our unofficial last slide, but what we would ask of you is this: if you could go ahead and make sure that you complete the Module 3 post-workshop. The link is there. We would certainly appreciate that. So, any other questions before we have you do the survey? And obviously we'll stay around a little bit for questions. Anything else, Reese or Janie? Okay, so yeah, we'll all stay on for a little bit. You know, whenever you are ready to go, you can leave. Thank you for participating tonight. We know you got a lot of things on your mind. So
Thank you, Julie, for throwing that in there. Thanks, everybody. Just, again, don't hesitate. I love seeing all your faces. Hang in there.
yep, take care. Keep fighting the good fight.